Hi everyone, Alex from AutoStore here. This is episode 9 of Breaking Down the Forester Report, and today we're going to jump into the actual costs rather than just the benefits we've been talking through so far. It's going to do both the upfront costs as a starting point and then the ongoing costs as well, so I'll jump straight in. So, the upfront costs. So, this is broken down into three sort of subsections, going from internal planning costs, implementation costs, and then your training costs as well. So, internal planning, obviously, you're going to have some sort of a project team working on everything and making sure internally all the operations ready to be upgraded to automation. So, within the report, they've got it down as about 20 hours per employee and about 5 employees working on the project. On the staff hourly salary of €40 an hour adds up to 192,000. Next few are key ones. So, this is the implementation costs. Number one, floor flatness. So AutoStore needs a really nice flat floor because the bins are stacked directly on the floor. So if there's any unevenness in the stack, then it can kind of lean one way or the other. And also, if you imagine the grid pillars are directly attached to the floor. So if you're 5 or 6 meters up in the air, any sort of undulation is exaggerated by at the top of the grid. So it just makes the whole system run a lot more smoothly, excuse the pun, if the flat is nice and if the floor is nice and flat as well. Installation costs about €100,000 for that as well. That's just for the work on site. Next up is the fire suppression systems. So this is a commonly asked question. Most FM Global basically say you need to have top level sprinklers on the ceiling, straight down, and that's the view. But there are a lot of systems, depending on the insurer, that don't need any sort of fire suppression on that at all. I will do a video further down the line about fire suppression generally with AutoStore because it's a really common question and obviously needs addressing with all new installs. The next one, any new power supply and lighting. Lighting on top of the grid, you don't necessarily need anything. It's just to make it look pretty. The robots don't need any light or anything like that. But certainly at the ports and where people are interacting, you want to make that environment as nice as possible. And then software development. So this is always going to vary from project to project, depending on what your WMS or ERP is and how easily we can integrate with that. But generally, software integration, we haven't found any software we can't interact with, so we should be okay. But the price will vary depending on that. And then the final one is the training costs. So depends on your number of super users. So we'd usually aim for about 2 per shift. On here, they've got 5 super users. And then the number of hours for those super users for the upfront training, about €50 an hour salary. So that adds up to €10,000 as well. So your total costs is 959,200 with the kind of 10% risk adjustment, and that's the same value in your net present value calculation as well because it is just an upfront cost. So that's your upfront costs there. So you've got it installed, it's all implemented and working well. What are your ongoing costs going to be for a system like this? So operating expense is about 3% of the hardware cost. And that's based on sort of licensing fees and maintenance packages. So the AutoStore licensing fees for this particular one would be about €40,000. Integrated maintenance packages, this will vary depending on how quickly you're wanting them to react and if you're wanting on-site maintenance teams. Basically, none of our systems have any on-site teams. It's all just kind of coming in for a MOT for the robots or just general preventative maintenance for the ports. So the overall cost with a 10% risk adjustment is €340,000 a year. So 3-year net present value of €846,000. But the total actual cost is about €1 million. Okay, so that's episode 9, going through the implementation costs and the ongoing costs of this particular auto store. Shows it in quite granular detail about the various bits outside of the hardware and implementation that's actually required, things like the fire protection and flooring. So I think hopefully that's giving you a good flavour of what's required. Next week, we're going to go into the actual costs of the auto store itself and the hardware costings from there. So I'll chat to you then. Thanks very much.